Hi there, how are you doing? This is Rajat from Startup Frat. Hope you're doing fine, taking care of yourselves and your family and staying safe. Today I have a video for you about the retail industry with specific focus on Amazon. I happened to mention Amazon a couple of times in my previous videos, got a bunch of input saying tell us more about how Amazon works. So I have created this video around the retail industry and how e-retail, how Amazon has basically won the game in e-retail. Now, before we go into the depths of this video, I'd just like to quickly put a disclaimer. I'm not an expert in the retail industry because I don't do big ticket consulting for these multi-crore rupee industries. Although I did do a bunch of export consulting back in the day, back in 2006-07 for a bunch of manufacturers who make automobile parts in India and then they export them. But short of trying to find business for them from Germany, etc., I don't have a whole lot of experience here. So what I've tried to do is pick up some concepts from books that I have read, and then I invest a lot of money into the stock market. So just some of the things that I've learned about how to analyze industries and companies before putting your hard-earned money into them. And then I've tried to find a couple of commonalities that could be useful to people like you and me in our career planning and business planning, because what's the point of learning about 10,000 crore rupee industry when we are not at that scale? But you can always learn things about how people do business and change the game that you can apply yourself at your scale. So let's quickly get into this. The first thing we will do is we will quickly study the setup, the retail setup, sector setup and how it works. And then we'll come back to some of these items that I've known here, like constraints and breakthrough concepts, etc. So setup. This on the left over here is a typical brick and mortar retail store setup, and this applies to a shop, and it also applies to large big ticket retail stores like Big Bazaar and D-Mart and things like that. Now, the way this works over here is that you have a large store where customers actually take their time and energy and travel to the store. And what the store does is it doesn't really make anything of its own, but what it does is it collects a whole lot of catalog material from a whole lot of manufacturers and sets it up on nice shelves, etc., and gives the customers a good experience when they walk in. There's air conditioning hopefully, and then they can walk around and pick up things that they like, and then they walk out with these items. The value that big ticket retail basically added was that customers could basically walk in and get a great experience walking around and pretty much find everything that they need under one roof, and that is the whole idea behind big ticket retail. And it was a disruptive force in the early 2000s and then early 2010s, because especially from the Indian context, when an economy starts becoming developed, you have breakthrough concepts which try to save a customer's time and hopefully also money. Now, because they have a large retail store and they have tens of thousands of customers walking in every day, they can command rates from all of these back-end suppliers. So typically something that you would get for a manufacturing retail price of 100 rupees, if you go to a Big Bazaar, you would be able to find it for 95, because Big Bazaar has been able to negotiate the rates down to maybe 90 or whatever it is. In addition to that, they may be charging rent from all of these people to put this to put their products on their shelves, because suddenly if 10,000 people are walking past their shelves, that the real estate space of that shelf becomes very, very high. Now, this was a disruptive concept, because it doesn't work on creating, they did create their own value, but the value that they created primarily was not in the actual store that they built, the real estate and the parking lots and the AC. What they created was an optimized concept where they didn't make any of these products, but they provided a great experience for thousands of people who can come there and shop everything. And the 2 points of value that they provided to these customers is A, everything is available under one roof, and B, you can get probably good pricing, coupons, discounts, things like that. And the store is able to negotiate that with the suppliers, because the store first of all figures out how to get footfall with thousands of people. And it was a breakthrough concept of its time. Now, what Amazon has done is Amazon has further optimized it by saying that you don't really need to, if you look at the figure on the right, you don't really need to take your time and energy and come and visit me, because couple of things. First of all, your time and energy gets invested, and second thing is you might be wanting a particular item of a particular brand and it may not be in stock, or we may not be having that brand at all, and then basically that wastes your time. So what you can do is you can just go into your mobile phone, place an order into the cloud, and then what we will do is we have a whole lot of suppliers over here who will either supply to you directly, or they can supply it via us. We will supply it to you directly. And again, the same thing, because we command tens of thousands of customers' eyeballs. Now, it's not about footfall, it's about eyeball. We have tens of thousands of customers' eyeballs, and we can probably demand better rate from all of these suppliers. So why is Amazon successful? And as soon as Amazon came in, all these big ticket retail stores started closing down. And Amazon has been a big hit to retail stores because literally everybody's ordering everything through Amazon. So let's go back to our mind map over here. There's some constraints with with respect to retail companies, hard brick and mortar retail companies. And some of these constraints can basically pass on to the customer, where it starts impacting the experience. The first thing is the setup is expensive. So to set up a retail company with this huge store and parking lots and things like that, it is expensive. So obviously it only works at scale, which basically means it only works if you actually have 10,000 customers walking into every single store. And if you open your store in an area where that much of footfall is not there, or if your products are not a match for that kind of audience. So if you have a big city and then you have outskirts of that city, the same kind of products that sell in the center of town where people have more purchasing power, if you stock them in the outskirts of the city, it won't sell very well. Similarly, products that sell more in the outskirts of the city or in the small towns, some of the patterns of, let's say, shirts that people buy may not gel very well with some of the more upmarket crowd that is in the center of the city. So you have to be very, very careful about what you stock where. And then if any of your stock is not moving as fast as the other stock, then you're basically losing money on that stock. So anyway, the whole thing only works at scale. If you have tens of thousands of people walking in, then you can really make it work. However, the scale is limited or capped. There is a point of diminishing returns, which basically means if the store can at any point in time accommodate 10,000 people, and on Sunday you have, let's say, 15,000 people walk in, then it becomes a horrible situation for everybody. Not only do your products get out of stock halfway through the day, but customers have a horrible experience shopping with you because they have to stand in long lines and things like that, and your checkout counters may not be equipped to handle crowds that are maybe 2x on one day of the week, but half x on all the other days of the week. So load balancing is a little bit of an issue. And when you reach a little bit of scale where you're pretty much getting peak traffic, then it becomes your limitation or your plateau, which basically means that you cannot drive any more business from that store once it is packed to peak capacity. What you can do is you can set up another store, and another store. If you want to set up another store over here, then you basically, what you're doing is you're investing some more money in the setup. Now, I have a quick question for you. Why does Warren Buffett not invest in automobile companies? Why does Warren Buffett not invest in automobile companies? Because what happens is that they work at scale, but the scale works to their disadvantage. So a car company comes out with, let's say, 10 models, and they have to keep coming up with models because people only want to buy newer models. They don't want to buy something that is the same size, shape, that has been around for last 5-10 years. Plus technology by itself in terms of electronics and in terms of fuel injection, in terms of car performance, in terms of fuel consumption is evolving so fast that you do need to come out with more and more models. Assuming 1 out of your 10 models becomes a hit, what happens is there is a point of diminishing returns where if enough people have that model, more people don't want that model because it's not unique, right? It works a little bit differently in India for some car brands like Maruti, which is essentially an economy car brand where people would like to buy the exact same model that other people have because it is proven to give more fuel economy or things like that, or it is more cheap to maintain, economical to maintain over the long term. But broadly, people want to get newer models, newer things, and then technology also evolves. So what really happens is, even if you get 1 or 2 winning models out of 10 that you launch, they're going to get obsolete in maybe 2 years to 5 years time. And then what you're going to have to do is retooling. That means you will have to create a new model. For that model, you'll have to get in bigger machines, other different machines, which create a different type of body. And then maybe the technology has evolved, so they have automatic gears which are of a different type. So you need to retool your entire factory in order to create a new model. And what happens is, all of the profit that you've made off your hit models basically goes into R&D and retooling to come out with your future models, with no guarantee that your future models will work. So retooling is basically very expensive, and it takes away all of the consistent gains of an investor. So there is no compound gain in investing in an automobile company. This is as per Warren Buffett, and what he calls them as cyclicals. When their automobile model is hit, the stock price goes up, and then as soon as they have to dump the money, all their profits into R&D and retooling for a future car model, then the profit suddenly goes down. They may be running in red for a while, and then maybe they get another hit model in the market, and then the whole thing goes up and then goes down. So Warren Buffett calls them as cyclicals, and the main issue is, at a certain point of scale or at a certain point, there is a diminishing return, where if you get your retail store fully filled with enough footfall, then you can't really grow the business. There is no unlimited gain. So your peak profit potential is basically limited. Now, since you have to pay all these people at the back end, you are really not making a whole lot of profit, maybe 5%, 10% at the max, which is why if you see retail companies slowly start coming out with their own brands, if they see that a particular brand of, let's say, rice is selling very well, they figure out how to go to the farmers directly and package that rice themselves, and then you'll have Big Bazaar coming out with their own entire brands, because they make a little bit of more profit over there. So once they've established the market, they will try to do some vertical integration, which is they'll try to replace all of the guys that were supplying them and try to bring in their own brand, so that A, they have more control, and B, they drive more profit. Now, how is Amazon different? What Amazon did was, Amazon said, now Amazon is in the same place, not a very high profit company. It's not a very high profit company. I think right now they're making about 4% profit or something like that. But what they did was, they had extremely long-term thinking. What Jeff Bezos did was, he said, before I hit my point of diminishing return, I will be the biggest retail company on this planet. And he said that in letter to shareholders back in 1997. He said that to letters to shareholder in 1997, that our dream is to become the biggest brand on this planet that will deliver everything and anything right to your doorstep with the click of a button. And you won't have to wait a month for us to get it from China or whatever it is. So he had extremely long-term thinking. Now, at certain point, this whole Amazon model will also have a point of diminishing return, but by that time, they will be the biggest, literally the biggest company on the planet. The reason that other companies were unable, other e-retail companies like Flipkart, etc., were unable to reach the scale of Amazon, and they got washed out. The moment Amazon enters in any country, they pretty much wash out all the other e-retail and retail companies. And the reason is that Amazon has heavy duty investments into the actual supply chain. So the issue over here is, your point of diminishing return doesn't come from the store, because your store is actually the cloud, and the cloud is unlimited. But you get your point of diminishing return in this area, which is the travel and transit. Since the customer is not traveling, all of your success is dependent on how well you do this, which is how well you get the product from point A into the customer's hands. And what Amazon basically did was, they created their own entire supply chain. Amazon today is the owner of probably the world's, I think somebody said, the world's biggest fleet of ships, the world's biggest fleet of aircraft, the world's largest warehouse space, and they basically employ more than 500,000 people, I think, in the US alone. So they're a huge employer. They've really figured out the supply chain. They've built the biggest supply chain in the market. They said, we are not producing anything ourselves, but what we are going to do is, in order to add value, we're going to build the biggest and the most robust supply chain in the market. So they did have an asset that they built. That asset did not really create anything, but it optimized everything to such an extent that all the other companies could not match up. So that is what Amazon did. Today, if you look at it from the point of view of a consumer, I don't even compare prices between Amazon and some other e-retail store like a Flipkart or Myntra. I don't know. I don't even look at it. I just go straight to Amazon, and I know that even if I buy a product from the US, they're going to get it to me at a time that they predict, and it'll come to me with all the custom duties, etc. included, and whatever price they've shown me is the net price. I won't have to pay 1 rupee extra, and they will get it to me at whatever price. So everything is transparent. The level of experience is just mind-numbing, and trust me, if I was finding something cheaper on some other site, I wouldn't order it, because at the end of the day, what I want is peace of mind and a product to be shipped to me from all over the world, right to my doorstep, with a guarantee that that my money is not going to go to waste, and the refunds are going to be easy, and the shipment is not going to get lost, and then I'm not going to be wasting my time tracking the whole thing. So anyway, so that's what Amazon does. Now, they had extremely long-term thinking, and they were an extremely frugal company. Apart from reinvesting all of their money and their profits into their fleet of ships and aircraft and all of those things, they literally did not spend any money. They did not pay any dividend to any investors. In fact, whatever investment they attracted from the big investing houses like private equity and all of these, the big investing houses, Jeff Bezos's personality winning, I think the winning statement of his personality was that he was able to get investors clued in or keyed in to his dream, which is, I'm going to build the biggest company on the planet, but you as an investor should know upfront that I'm not going to give you any return on your investment for the next 25 years. And he could still get a whole lot of investors to bank with him. So as the company was expanding, obviously they needed money to buy all these planes and ships and space and employees and all of that. But he got investment from the best of the best, and he was able to bring them on board with his idea that for 25 years, you're not going to get any return on your money, no dividends, no paybacks, no nothing, but you will be a part of the biggest company on the planet. So that was his personal winning formula. And he's not only the company very frugal, even as a single individual, he's very frugal person. A few years back, he was driving a second-hand Honda Accord, which is considered to be an entry-level car in the US, not considered to be a premium brand. And he was literally, somebody assessed it to be worth $3,000. He was driving a beat-up car because he didn't care. He was putting everything into building the brand of Amazon. And today it is the largest company on the planet, and he's the richest person in the world. Now, what are some of the things that you and I can learn from this? How can we apply this in our lives and our businesses and our professions? Quick thing, point of diminishing returns. You need to be very honest with yourself and figure out what is your point of diminishing return in your job or your profession. At what point does getting additional customers become a pain rather than a gain, right? So once you have all of those on a Sunday morning, you have all of those people in the store, every additional customer that walks in actually increases the pain for themselves and for everybody else, because then they're also consuming from the same limited pool of products, and they're also standing in line for the checkout and increasing the wait time for everybody. So every additional customer that walks in creates a pain for everybody else who's already in it, right? So there's a point of diminishing returns. But Amazon has something else. It's called a reverse point of diminishing returns. It is actually a flywheel. It is a point of escalating or compounding returns, which basically means that in their model, the more the number of suppliers, the more the number of customers they have, and the more the customer demand, the more they are able to onboard suppliers onto their supplier list. The more the suppliers, the more the products. The more the products, the more Amazon is able to beat them down on price, because they are obviously competing against each other in the Amazon ecosystem. The more Amazon beats them down on price, the better it becomes for customers, and the more customers basically join the Amazon portal. They want to buy from Amazon. The more customers there are, the more Amazon is able to add suppliers, because the more demand there is, and the more demand there is, the more it's able to beat down the suppliers on price, which basically means that they make it better for everybody. They make it better for the supplier, because supplier can get business straight from Amazon without doing their own business development. Customers get cheap products from all over the globe, and Amazon obviously increases in value the more people it has on its ecosystem. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. And this is what they call a flywheel. Every supplier that joins their ecosystem makes it better for every customer, and may not be for every other supplier, but at least for Amazon. So every supplier that joins the ecosystem makes it better for every customer. And if the supplier has, let us say, products that are in excess of capacity or products that are of a unique nature, then definitely they make it better for every other supplier also, because more products of a unique nature will attract more customers, and more customers means all the existing people on the portal, all the existing suppliers on the portal will also get more business. So it's basically a point of compounding returns. What is the third thing? The third thing is a niche focus. Amazon did not go all out and waste their money going in all directions all at once. They did not try to compete with Walmart. They did not try to compete with this store. They said, we are only going to do one thing and one thing only. We're going to start with books. And we're going to use books because there was nobody competing in the book space, right? You don't find a bookstore at Walmart. You don't find a bookstore in Big Bazaar or in D-Mart, right? So they competed in an area where there was a little bit of demand. There was highly specialized demand and people were passionate. So I'm a passionate book reader. If I want a book, I want it at whatever price from wherever you get it. And sometimes I buy books worth 2,000 rupees that are delivered to me from the US, and literally 1 year later I find the same book launched in India for like 300 rupees. But the point is, if I wanted to read it at that point, I wanted it and I was willing to pay for it. So so they started with books and they did not compete with all the others. But once they built their name in the books domain, then they expanded their product portfolio to other things. So one thing to learn from Amazon is always have niche focus. Always go very, very narrow and in an area where you can probably have less competition and be the only name that can actually get customer delight. So do it within the realms of your competency and do it for a limited set of people who will love you and who will stay connected with you forever. The third thing that Amazon did was they absorbed complexity. They do a lot of things that so some of the things with e-retail was there was a lot of complexity. I mean, when the order comes to me, I should save the invoice. There's an order number. Every time I call somebody, they'll ask me for the order number. Then I'll have to fish it out of my computer, give them an 11-digit order number, and then track the shipment. Amazon does all of this for you. In fact, you don't even need to call them. If you go to customer support, you just say, you call me, and they'll call you and they'll know your name, they'll know your account, and they'll exactly tell you before you ask them. They tell you where your shipment is, how many days it's going to reach you, and etc. They provide the whole thing cash on delivery, and if you choose to return the product, it's no questions asked. Now, what Jeff Bezos did was he absorbed all the complexity that is there for the customer. The first level of complexity he removed was you don't need to travel. You don't need to come to me. I'll come to you, right? You don't need to search for. There will never be any product that will be like out of stock. Pretty much go to the internet, everything will be in stock. And the third thing is all of this other stuff that is involved with e-retail that's a pain in the ass for a customer, I'll remove that at my own cost. So these huge call centers that are working 24/7 and the guarantee that they take and then they return things with no questions asked, it's a hit on Amazon in the short term, but it's a win in the long term, because once a customer becomes comfortable, the customer only wants to do business with them. So real quick, I'll give you 2 examples of other flywheels, and then what I want you to do is I'm going to give you an exercise that will probably help you. The first thing is some examples of a flywheel are all the game-changing inventions in the past are basically have worked on a flywheel concept. So the introduction of the automobile, for example. Now, if Ford was not the actual inventor of the automobile, but he was the first mass producer of the automobile. What he did was he mass produced the cars in such a quantity and made them so affordable that the government was forced to build more and more roads, because if there are people who are buying cars and willing to pay tax on it, then all that tax money is incentivizing the government to build more roads. The more roads there are, the more people want to buy cars. The more cars people buy, the more it incentivizes the government to build more roads. And that's how Henry Ford basically created the automobile revolution. The telephone. You can't really produce just one telephone, right? Who's the customer going to call? So the more telephones you produce, the more you produce one telephone, and what does that customer want to do? He wants to at least have his friends and family get a telephone so they can talk with each other. The more people there are, the more telephones they want other people to get, because now they want to call businesses, now they want to call the government, they want to call the railways, they want to call the airlines. So they want more and more customers to come onto the platform. And the more customers there are on the platform, the richer the platform is and the better it is for everybody. So the telephone. The third thing is social media, Facebook. What's the use of Facebook if I'm the only one on Facebook? The moment I get on Facebook, what do I want to do? Not only do I want all of my friends over there, I'm going to actively send them an invite link to Facebook, because unless they come on the platform, my experience is useless, right? So they have a flywheel where not only does it grow, does the experience become richer for everybody, the more people join. It's called some kind of networking, I think, not social networking. In business parlance, it's called the network effect. Right? So the more people join, not only do the more people join, my experience becomes better, but I want to actively go out and get them on the platform so we can share that experience, right? If I get a phone, I want more and more people to have a phone so I can call them. So that is what you call the network effect, where you really don't have to spend on advertising. The customers will actually educate each other on, getting onto the platform so they can have a better experience, and you make it a win-win for everybody. So that's called the flywheel effect. And the second thing, of course, is absorbing complexity or solving a problem for somebody else. And the third thing is creating a community. So what I want you to do is, if this interests you, what you need to do is take an exercise for yourself and write it down and say, hey, what is the one thing in which I can reduce complexity for the next guy? What is it that I know that I can teach somebody else and make their life better, right? Because your knowledge is the number one thing you have, which is free. It's in your head and it's free. So what is the number one thing that I can probably teach somebody and solve a complex problem, even if it's like playing some instrument? If I know how to play an instrument and if I teach it to somebody, their life becomes better, assuming they want to learn that instrument, right? So if I can find enough number of people who want to play that instrument and I'm the person who can solve that complexity for them, maybe they'll be willing to pay me a little bit of money for me to solve that complexity for them, right? So whom can you solve complexity for? And B, how can you create a flywheel where not only do they gain from the learning you give them, but they want, how can you create that community where they can actually share some of the learnings that they've had, and actually everybody grows from the experience. So community building, which is the network effect, and then absorbing complexity, which is what is the number one thing that you can do that maybe other people can't do so well. You don't need to be the best at it. You just need to be pretty good at it as compared to the next person. And if you can help solve that problem for them and bring all these people together, you will see that you will be ascending on the influence spectrum. You can create workshops, you can create your own ecosystem, and over a period of time you can have, you can build your personal brand. So that's where all of this has been going. So that's it from my side. If you like this, do share this video with your friends and family. And then if you're not already in our Hangout group, just search for Startup Frat in groups and see if you can put in a request. That's it from my side. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.